Imagine two students who are equally motivated, intelligent, and eager to succeed. They both dream of going to college and building successful futures. However, one student attends a well funded school with smaller classrooms, counselors, and advanced technologies. The other student goes to a school with overcrowded classrooms, limited resources, and outdated materials. Although these students have the same potential, their opportunities are very different. These differences are not accidental, they are a result of systemic racism in education. Horace Mann once said, "Education is a great equalizer of the conditions of men." I interpret this quotation to mean that education has the power to create fairness and opportunities for everyone, regardless of background or race. I agree with this idea, but only when education systems actively address systemic racism. Without confronting these inequalities, education cannot truly serve as an equalizer. Today, I will explain how systemic racism affects education through three major examples: racism built in educational institutions, inequality in school funding, and racial biases in school discipline. Systemic racism is deeply embedded within educational institutions across the United States. According to the National Education Association, an organization representing educators nationwide in a 2021 report, racial inequalities in education are rooted in hysterical segregation and discriminatory policies. These policies continue to affect schools today. While segregation is no longer legal, its effects are still visible in schools, district boundaries, neighborhood zoning, and unequal access to resources. For example, many school districts are funded based on local property taxes. Because communities of color have historically faced housing discrimination and economic disadvantages, their school often receives fewer funding. This means fewer advanced classes, fewer counselors, and fewer opportunities for students to succeed. These systemic issues show that racism is not just about individual prejudice, it is built into the structure of education itself. This example supports my agreement with Horace Mann, because education cannot equalize opportunity when the system is designed in a way that benefits some students more than others. Now that we have looked at how systemic racism exists within educational institutions, we can examine how directly it affects school funding. Inequality in school funding plays a major role in educational disparities. According to the U.S. Department of Education in 2022 funding analysis, schools that serve mostly students of color receive billions of dollars less each year than schools with predominantly white students. This funding gap leads to larger classes, fewer extracurricular programs, outdated technology, and limited academic support. These differences have a serious impact on students. For instance, students in underfunded schools may not have access to advanced placement courses, college counselors, or even basic classroom supplies. Meanwhile, students in wealthier districts often benefit from newer faculties, student programs, and college preparation resources. When students do not receive equal funding, they are not given equal chances to succeed. This demonstrates that education cannot truly function as an equalizer when resources are distributed unfairly. Without addressing these funding gaps, systemic racism continues to limit opportunities for students of color. Beyond funding issues, systemic racism also affects how students are treated within schools. Racial biases in school discipline further contributes to inequality in education. According to the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights in 2021 Civil Rights Data Collection Report, Black students are suspended and expelled at a significantly higher rate than white students for similar behaviors. These disciplinary practices are often more serve to remove students from the classroom for minor infractions. Being suspended or expelled interrupts the student's education and increases the likeliness of failing behind academically. These disciplinary actions can lead to higher dropout rates and fewer opportunities after high school. This pattern is often referred to as the school-to-prison pipeline, where students are pushed out of the schools instead of being suspended. These biased discipline practice undermined education's roles as an equalizer because students are often punished differently based on race rather than behavior. This creates a long-term consequence that affects students well beyond the classroom. Now that we have examined how systemic racism affects educational institutions, funding, and discipline, let's step back and consider what all this means. Today, we explore Horstman's quotation, "Education is the great equalizer of the conditions of man." We interpret this to mean that education has the potential to create fairness and opportunities for everyone. While we agree with this idea, we also recognize that education can only fulfill this role when systemic racism is actively addressed. Through examples of racism embedded in educational institutions, inequality in school fundings, and racial bias in discipline, we can see why equal potential does not always lead to equal outcomes. Just like the two students we imagined at the beginning, success in education depends not only on effort, but rather the system itself as fair. Until the systemic barriers are addressed, education cannot be the equalizer it is meant to be. Thank you.